Alright, let's go over EOC Bellringer Quiz 2. So, first we are looking at number 1. If you missed number 1, it might be because you selected the sentences that are punctuated correctly when the question asks you to select the sentences that are not punctuated correctly. So you should be selecting the sentences that are not punctuated correctly. A. I'm still planning, she said, to go to the library after school. This is not punctuated correctly because the quotation marks are around she said, whereas they should be around the actual words that she said. So, since this is not punctuated correctly, we should have clicked A. B is punctuated correctly. We have the quotation marks around Mr. Bloom. She asked does not have quotation marks around it. There's a comma after she asked. There's a comma after Mr. Bloom, as there should be, saying the sentence is continuing on and not ending here. And then we also have quotation marks around will you be our sponsor for the school trip. So B is punctuated absolutely correct. So we should not mark B because remember we're looking for the sentences that are not punctuated correctly. C, I have greatly appreciated your hard work on the debate team, said Mr. Martinez. This is also not punctuated correctly. Why? Because we have quotation marks after Mr. Martinez, whereas our punctuation marks should have stopped after team. We don't want to put punctuation marks around said Mr. Martinez. So at this point, A is incorrect and C is incorrect. Since they are I know this is confusing. Since they are incorrect, we should click those because we're looking for the sentences that are not punctuated correctly. And then let's look at D. Mrs. Kelly said, comma, saying we're going to introduce what she said. Quotation mark. Please arrive at school at precisely 8 o'clock on Thursday to take the exam period. Close quotation marks. So, this one is also punctuated correctly. So you should not have clicked B and D. You should have clicked A and C. If you missed this one, I would bet it's because you picked the sentences that were punctuated correctly when that's not what the question asked of you. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 is asking about a semicolon. What does a semicolon do? A semicolon separates two independent clauses, aka two complete sentences. So A, inside the cottage, the detectives found fingerprints on a plastic cup, semicolon, which they considered an important clue to the mystery. The semicolon is used incorrectly here. Why? Because the second half after the semicolon is not an independent clause. So there shouldn't be anything here. So since this is incorrect, we should click it because we're looking for the semicolons that are used incorrectly. Now let's look at B. I have good memories of a childhood spent in the far north, semicolon. Nevertheless, I would not want to return to live in that climate again. The semicolon here is used correctly, right? We have an independent clause before, we have an independent clause after. If you thought you should put comma, nevertheless, that's incorrect because we join sentences with comma conjunction. Nevertheless is a transition word. It does not count as a conjunction. If it was comma but or comma and, it would work, but that is not the case. So we have two independent clauses separated by a semicolon, so this is correct. Let's look at C. If you take the bus downtown, semicolon. I will meet you on the first floor of the library by the elevators, semicolon. The ones to the right as you enter the building. So remember, semicolons separate two independent clauses. We look at the start of this and it says, if you take the bus downtown, semicolon. If you take the bus downtown is an introductory clause. So it's not an independent clause. So this one automatically from the start, we see that it is incorrect. Then D. The study of a foreign language covers several areas, semicolon. The history of the language, the literature written in the language, and the culture of the people who speak the language. This semicolon's wrong. What should really be here? A colon, okay? But the semicolon's wrong because the list that comes after the semicolon is not an independent clause. So we were looking for the sentences that use the semicolon incorrectly. So the ones that do are A, C, and D. Let's look at number 3. Number 3 is another. Select all of the sentences that demonstrate correct parallel structure. What is parallel structure? Remember, parallel in math, everything's side by side and the same. That's what we think of with parallel in English as well. When a sentence or parts of a sentence are side by side, they need to be set up the same way. We like to look at the beginning of that to see if it's parallel. So A, Most people think of the downtown area as a place to visit briefly, comma, not where you can live. This is not parallel. To make this parallel, we would have to say, most people think of the downtown area as a place to visit briefly, but most people do not think of it as a place where you can live. Remember, we're looking at the beginnings. So A is not parallel. B, on the table in the living room stood a vase of flowers, a statue of a horse, and a black metal lamp. This is parallel. You should have clicked B. Why? Because let's look at our list. A vase of flowers, a statue of a horse, a black metal lamp. A followed with our noun. A followed with our noun, right? So this is parallel. We click it. C, Miss Madeline Robinson appears to be involved and responsible for a significant number of community projects. The two parts of our sentence here we're looking at is involved and responsible. This is not parallel. To make this parallel, we would have to say something like Miss Madeline Robinson appears to be involved and appears to be responsible for a significant number of community projects. Since it just says responsible, it's not parallel. So I'm not going to click it. Then D, Keith said he had often been tempted to pick up the telephone and to call his uncle, although they have never met. This is parallel. Why? Because of those infinitive clauses, okay? Those infinitive phrases. An infinitive, remember, is a verb that has to in front of it. So we have to pick up the telephone and to call his uncle. To pick up what? Telephone. To call who? His uncle. So that is parallel. So for this, number 3, you should have clicked B and D. B and D are parallel. A and C are not. Let's look at number 4. If I can get there. Number 4, the industrialist H.J. Heinz introduced ready-made condiments, which most Americans now take for granted. The underlined part of this sentence is classified as, I was not trying to trick you here, okay? The underlined part of the sentence is, which most Americans now take for granted. A is a participle phrase. Have we went over that? Nope. Did I say it was going to be on this quiz? Nope. So I'm not trying to trick you. I told you independent and dependent clauses would be on this quiz. So those are the only 2 that you could pick. So A, not it. B, a gerund phrase. Have we went over gerunds? Yes, but did I say it was going to be on this? No. So we're not clicking it. So then we have C and D, what we did talk about. Independent clause, dependent clause. An independent clause is a complete sentence or a complete thought that can stand on its own. A dependent clause is not and has to depend on an independent clause to make it a complete thought. So let's listen. Which most Americans now take for granted. Is that a complete sentence? Is that a complete thought? No, it is not. So D, dependent clause, is our answer. It has to have the first part of that sentence to make it a complete thought. Let's look at number 5. If I can get there. Number 5, read the sentence. What's the correct way to write the underlined part of the sentence? It had many features for the factory workers. Roof gardens, lunchrooms, a gym, a library, an auditorium, and even a swimming pool. Our correct answer is B. After workers, you should have a colon. Why? Why colon? Well, first, we can't do a comma because then we have a run-on sentence. We also can't just leave it alone because we have a run-on sentence. We can't do ... Just doesn't work. What's the rule of a colon? The rule to use a colon is that you have to have an independent clause, colon, and whatever comes after that independent clause is going to be an example or further information explaining your independent clause. So before this, we have, it had many features for the factory workers. That is a complete thought. That is a complete sentence. Then after the colon, we have just list of the features. So we have a list, and before that list is an independent clause. So that is separated by a colon. So B is your answer for number 5. Number 6. Once again, what's the correct way to punctuate the underlined part of this sentence? The sentence reads, Henry's father owned and managed a brick oven. His mother grew vegetables in the garden. We're looking for what comes after oven. So at this point, there's nothing there, which means it's a run-on sentence, right? Listen again. Henry's father owned and managed a brick oven. His mother grew vegetables in the garden. It's a whole lot. It's a run-on sentence. So we can't leave it at nothing. A has just a comma after it. That also doesn't work. Why? Because there's 2 independent clauses. on both sides. To join two independent clauses, if we use a comma, we have to also have a conjunction. This answer choice does not have that, so A is not correct. B, we have a semicolon. This is great because this is one of the three ways is to join two independent clauses. Remember, two independent clauses can be joined by a semicolon, period, capital letter, comma, conjunction. So looking at this, the only option we see is B, the semicolon. Henry's father owned and managed a brick oven. That's one independent clause. His mother grew vegetables in the garden. That's another independent clause. So in between that, we need that semicolon. So B is our answer. Let's look at number 7. I think this was a fairly, this was a pretty missed by a lot of people. In Paris, Baldwin completed his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, and a play, The Amen Corner. How should the underlined part of the sentence be rewritten using correct punctuation? Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and say our correct punctuation is C. C. Why is it C? Because we have commas surrounding our non-essential clauses, right? That was one of our skills this week. Not only the non-essential, but it's naming, and we need commas to surround that. We worked on that. Information that can be taken out of a sentence and the sentence remained the same needs to be surrounded by commas. So let's read it without what we would surround by commas. In Paris, Baldwin completed his first novel and a play. Wow, that works beautifully. So yes, those commas just indicate that this can be taken out of the sentence and our sentence would remain the same. Why is it not A with the colons? Because we're naming something, right? Why is it not A? If the sentence ended after Go Tell It on the Mountain, A would work. However, it does not. So then we got to look at and a play. And a play is not an independent clause. So a colon cannot come after it. So that is why A is incorrect. And then D is incorrect because once again, those non-essential clauses, we've got to indicate that they can be pulled out and the sentence remain the same. Now let's look at number 8. How should this sentence be rewritten to best improve its structure? Remember, when we're looking at revising or rewriting a sentence, we want to make it as concise and not repetitive. We don't want it to be repetitive. We want it to be straight to the point, and we want it to be in like a valid, logical order. So, for this one, B is the only one that's in this valid, logical order. It goes France, Baldwin, right? Whereas the other sentences go France, Baldwin, France. Or the other sentences are repetitive using, look at C, for instance. We have although, then we have even though, right there beside each other. That pretty much means the same thing, so it's a little too repetitive. So B is the best just because it goes France, Baldwin, and look, it's also the shortest, the straightest to the point. Number 9, once again, we're looking at rewriting a sentence, but this time we're looking at rewriting a sentence, and we're looking at rewriting a part of a list. So, obviously, when we rewrite a sentence, we want it to be short, we want it to be concise, we want it to be straight to the point, but when it's with a list, we want it to be parallel, okay? So we need it to be parallel. So our sentence reads, photographs can teach us about people in other parts of the world, show us scenes from historic events, and to give a reminder to us of important life events. So what we're looking at changing is to give a reminder to us of important life events. So let's look at the list. Let's look at the first 2 parts of the list and let's see what makes those first 2 parts parallel. Well, it starts with a verb, and then after the verb is us. We see teach us, we see show us. So if we want this to be parallel, what does the third part of the list have to do? It has to say verb, then it has to say us. So the only answer choice option would be C, remind us of important life events. B starts with remind, but it says remind ourselves. So that's not parallel because it doesn't have us after it. And then A is not parallel because it starts with they, whereas the other parts of our list start with a verb. So for 9, your answer is C. And let's look at 10. We're looking at the correct way to punctuate this sentence. Driver's education classes are like any other class. You must study to earn a good grade. Okay, so we have 2 parts of the sentence, 2 clauses. The first clause reads, driver's education courses are like any other class. The second clause reads, you must study to earn a good grade. So both of these clauses are what? They're independent clauses. Well, what's the 3 ways to separate an independent clause? We have period, capital letter. We have comma, conjunction. We have semicolon. Looking at our answer choices. What's the only one we have? We have B. B is a semicolon. The other three answer choices would lead us to a run-on sentence since we are separating two independent clauses. B, we see the semicolon, automatically dings. That's a way to separate two independent clauses, so that's our answer. If any of this doesn't make sense, if you're still confused on why you missed one, please reach out and let me know over the spring break. And have a good spring break.